Hello and welcome to another edition of the Syndicated Vomit Podcast, an extension of the Vomit series of podcasts. As always, I'm your host, Mac Taylor, and today we are going to be talking about The Mandalorian Season 2, Episodes 1 through 4. Holy shit, guys. The past couple of days, I've been going through this Mandalorian stuff, and obviously I watched Season 1, like right when it aired. Season 2, I waited until it was all up on Disney+. Waited until I got through Goosebumps to review on my channel. I had other things, other pieces of business before I could watch Mandalorian, before I could dive into this crunchy groove that is this show. And now I've been able to do it the past couple of days, and it has been a blasty blast. I have had a super good time doing this, and I cannot wait to discuss it. And I know what you're saying, Mac, just go ahead and do that right now. You got it. So without further ado, let's dive right into Season 2, Episode 1, The Marshal. So we kind of, this is the start of the season. And I think just like in the first season, you have to kind of set the tone of what this is going to be. So Mando goes into this sketchy-looking fight club where the kind of pig people from Jabba's palace or Jabba's ship or whatever, those pig guys, they're fighting with axes in the middle of a ring, so it's kind of a sketchy area. And he looks for this guy to get information from about where other Mandalorians may be. And the guy's like, yeah, not now. We don't talk, business until the fights are over. Be polite. So he's like, hey, why don't you bet on who's going to win or lose this fight? And, you bet your armor. And Mando's like, I'll just pay you for the info. I'm not going to bet my armor. And then a scuffle ensues between this guy and his goons and Mando. And, people are trying to fucking box the Mandalorian. They're trying to throw punches. He's in a full suit of armor. And you're going to punch him, with your bare fist? I know gaggles of thugs aren't really smart, but really, you're going to punch a helmet. It's so dumb. So Mando fucks them all up good. He's throwing knives, the whistling birds, the whole nine, because they're trying to take his armor, and you don't fuck with the Mandalorian's armor. This is the way. Don't do that. So it comes down to Mando and the guy, the crime boss, and he tries to run away. Mando shoots that little tether thing out of his wrist, hangs the guy up by his feet, and he gets the info that basically there's rumors that there's a Mandalorian on Tatooine. And I know there's a lot of eyebrow raising immediately, and there is kind of a red herring because we know the last Mandalorian type figure we saw on Tatooine was Boba Fett falling into the Sarlacc pit in Return of the Jedi. So immediately I was like, fuck, is this it? Is this how it happens? And so he strings up and he shoots the light and he leaves the guy strung up, and you see these creatures. You see red eyes. You see these rat type creatures come to eat this guy alive. And what a fucking opening. Just like in the premiere episode of Season 1, him capturing the blue guy, putting him in carbonite, setting that tone of how just kind of brutal this guy can be. And it's also funny, there's a little brief moment where right before the fight happens, Baby Yoda pushes the button and closes his little carrier thing so he doesn't have to watch the shit that's about to go down. It's super adorable. So he goes to Tatooine and he meets back with Pelamoto, the mechanic chick from the first season, and now he's okay with the droids. After the whole thing with the IG unit, he's going to give droids a chance. And we see PK droids is doing a little hijinks. There's a hose they're messing with on the ship, and it gets stuck to one of their faces. Droids are fun. We need more droid hijinks, Non-3PO R2 hijinks, PK droids are cute. And basically he's asking where Mos Pelgo is, and she's like, look, when the Empire was still around, that was a place, but after the Empire fell, it was a free-for-all. before the New Republic took over. Because, as expected, when one control group falls, before the next one takes office, like, there was anarchy. There were raiders everywhere. A lot of towns were really fucked up because they didn't have any law and order, whether that was, looked upon as good or bad. So basically, Mos Pelgo is supposed to be a ghost town. But so she pulls up in a pre-Fallen Empire map to show where Mos Pelgo would be. And he takes the speeder bike that he received from the bounty hunter he killed in the first season. So we've already had like little slivers of references to that first season. And that's what's interesting about this show going into its second season. We spent the first season, building that foundation of what this show's supposed to be, the world that we exist, the time that we're in, the people that are in it. Like, we're building a world. Star Wars has already, spent movies and books and video games and shows and all that business building this fucking large universe, but we had to establish what the Mandalorian's world is. And we did that in the first season, and now we can just kind of call back to that. We built that foundation, and we can just kind of extend from that and also go back to it as well. It's a safety net of things. So it's quite it's an interesting thing to reflect on as we move forward. So he goes to a bar in Mos Pelgo and asks if there's anyone that looks like him there. And they're like, "You looking for the marshal?" And immediately I'm like, "Who's the marshal? That sounds cool." And in walks a guy, and we knew it wasn't the guy because he's really skinny, wearing Boba Fett's armor. And immediately there's like 1,000 questions because it's Boba Fett's armor. It's got the damage from Jedi, and it's all scratched up and shit. And you're like, what? How'd he get Boba Fett's armor? Like, I'm already like, ooh, this guy, mystery, And he goes and he sits down. And he takes the helmet off, and as soon as a Mandalorian person in a Mandalorian's armor takes the helmet off, Mando's like, "You're not a real Mandalorian. Who are you? How'd you get that armor?" Just immediate. That's how you know they're not legit. And basically, he's like, "Look, I know that we're probably gonna have a fight to the death over this armor, so you're really gonna do this in front of the kid?" And he's like, "Kid's seen worse," which is true. And they go to fight, and before they can fight, there's like loud rumblings and shakings, and it's like, what the fuck is that? And you see in the sand movement. Like, it looks like, really, this whole episode feels like the first Tremors movie. Like, just the tone, everything. It feels like Tremors. And this thing is moving through the sand and fucking comes out and eats a bantha. Like, fucking huge worm. It basically, they call it the crate dragon. It's a fucking tremor. It's a graboid. A graboid has come to the Star Wars universe and eats a bantha. And he's like, "Look, that thing's been fucking with our town. I'll strike you a deal. If you help me kill that thing, I'll give you the armor." And basically he tells the story of how he, the marshal, received the armor. Is that just like Pelimoto said, when the Resistance won, literally like moments, they were celebrating the fall of the Empire, and a group of bandits immediately entered the town, started shooting, killing people, and took the bitch over because they're armed. And the marshal took it upon himself. He just grabbed something off one of their ships that happened to have crystals in it that he could sell. And he wanders the desert of Tatooine, which is a terrible idea. Almost dies and happens to stumble upon a sandcrawler with Jawas. And he sees Boba Fett's armor in there. And so he sells the crystals for water and for the armor. And then he brings the armor back to the town and just fucks up the bandits. He's shooting them. he shoots the little fucking rocket. Like, it just every time I see that rocket strapped to the back, it makes me think of the toy, like the original Boba Fett toy that shot the rocket off its back, and then they took it away because it was a choking hazard for children. And that's immediately what I think of when I see that rocket. And he's shooting people, and they're getting in this big, car trying to leave, and he fucking shoots the rocket and blows that shit up. It's fucking badass. I was like, yes, that's how you fuck somebody up with Boba Fett armor. And so he was able to take back the town and defend them, not just from those raiders, but from the Tusken Raiders, the Sand People, as well. And also, we see throughout this episode, there's a lot of those old school, and you know what I'm talking about, in the original Star Wars trilogy, but mostly in that first movie in the Tatooine scenes, there's these, like, wipe transitions. Like, when you go from, like, them sitting there talking about the Sand People to then being on a speeder, it does like this swipe across the screen, or it does like this bubble out effect. Very basic editing transitions. And they're all over that first movie. And, I notice them here and there in the other episodes, but more than ever, they are fucking in this episode. Like, there are so many old school, and maybe that's partially because anytime that we're in Tatooine, that to me is the most Star Wars feeling you can get. Because that's where this shit all started. We were in Tatooine, we met Luke Skywalker, and we were introduced to this fucking galaxy. We, with Luke, went on that journey, right? And nothing will ever be more Star Wars than that. So anytime a movie, a show, a book, anytime Tatooine is mentioned, and we go to Tatooine, that feels like Star Wars more than any other thing. It's not Jedi that makes Star Wars. It's not the Sith. It's not the Force. It's not aliens. It's that setting. Being in Tatooine with the banthas and the rolling sand hills and the fucking sand people and the droids, like seeing all the little little tiny sand houses and with the moisture machines and shit, that feels like Star Wars. That's Star Wars. So, and I know that sounds really silly for me to sit here and talk for like 5 fucking minutes about why Tatooine is Star Wars, but just to me, and I have that feeling of Hoth and Endor as well, but Tatooine is where this shit started. All of us that started with the original trilogy, or all of us that have watched the original trilogy, the adventure that is Star Wars, the big chunk of my life that is being a Star Wars fan, started in Tatooine. So, anytime we go to Tatooine, that child in me, that small child watching the ship play out, is there again. So, when I watched this episode for the first time, I was that small kid, big eyes, just, encapsulated in this world. And that setting will forever be Star Wars to me. So sorry to get off track, but just the way this episode is shot and the backgrounds it is in, this just felt so great to me. So while they're out in the desert, they run into the Tusken Raiders and their dogs. Like, I never knew they had dogs. That's just a nice little detail that they have these spiked dogs. But Mando speaks Raider. He makes those like hur, hur, hur. I know it's a terrible impression, but those those noises, and the Tusken Raiders speak in sign language as well. So he talks in sign language and communicates with the Raiders and gets the dogs to settle down and things like that. And basically the Raiders are like, hey, if you're going to kill the Krayt Dragon, we also want that dragon dead, so we'll help you. But there is tension between the Raiders and the Marshal and the town, because the Raiders have raided the town, and the Marshal killed a lot of fucking sand people with the Boba Fett armor. So both sides are not super big fans of each other, but they agree that if they help each other and if they take out this great dragon, the raiders will never raise a blaster on that town of Mos Pelgo unless they do it first. You know, we won't fuck with you, but if you fuck with us, it's on again. Pretty fair trade. Especially since, you know, originally we're the same people are mostly known as savages, but as we learn, especially with the Mandalorian, they do have a little bit of a code of ethics. That their word is their word, but you have to be able to communicate with them to try to make a bargain or to, you know, communication, you know, learn languages and shit. You might be able to not die. And Mando is tasked with basically keeping the peace between these two sides. Because, you know, there's a scene where they're sitting around a campfire talking about strategy, and the raider offers the marshal like this little thing of water that's kind of smells bad. He's like, I don't want to fucking take this. And he's like, oh, you're gonna assault us now? And then like, they're about to fight. And Mando's like, guys, like, look, if we kill each other, then that thing's if we're dead, who's gonna kill the dragon? So basically, they're showing them where the dragon lives and how they try to keep it at bay. So they feed it a bantha to keep it asleep longer. And so they set a bantha out, and it completely goes past the bantha and eats the sand raider trying to run away after it dropped off the bantha, and then it goes back in. They're like, fuck, that thing is huge. Because we only saw like the head come out of the sand. This thing is gigantic. And that moment of it coming out of the sand and eating that sand raider, it's like the moment in Jaws, you know, the we're gonna need a bigger boat. Like when that thing pops out of the sand, just like Jaws popping out of the water. Mando has that Brody moment of like, that's a big fucking, you know, graboid or whatever. It's a big fucking worm. And it felt exactly like that Jaws moment. And so that was, I don't know, Jaws is my favorite movie of all time. It even goes above Star Wars and shit. So having like a Jaws comparison in Star Wars just made my dick so hard. Like I was over the moon to be able to make that comparison. And also there is a brief mention that Dragon's hideout is in an abandoned Sarlacc pit. And the marshal's like, what Sarlacc abandons a pit? And Mando's like, it didn't. It ate it. So this fucking thing ate the Sarlacc that probably was the same one that Boba Fett fell into. So that Sarlacc in Jedi was eaten by this thing. That just, you know, just how fucking majorly badass this thing is. So they go back to the town to try to get the townspeople to help the Sand Raiders. And that is not an easy sell. But it's either that or this thing, you know, ruins our fucking village. So it's a reluctancy, but the townspeople agree to help out. And like there's a scene where like a Tusken Raider almost drops an explosive. Again, kind of like the Jaws moment when Hooper almost, or is it Hooper? No, it's Quint, I think, who almost drops the oxygen tank. And he's like, that's explosive. That shit happens here. The Raider almost drops it. He's like, you gotta blow us all up. It is almost, I wonder, I believe Jon Favreau directed this episode. I wonder how much of it was actually inspired by Jaws. Because it really felt like Jaws, man. Like a combo of pure Star Wars and Jaws. So basically, the idea that they're trying to do is they've dug a hole, planted all these explosives. They want to draw the dragon out and explode the explosives on its weak spot, which is its belly. That's the only thing you can penetrate in this thing. So it comes out a little bit, eats a fuck ton of Sand Raiders, and then tries to retreat. So they're like fucking shooting harpoons and shit at it, trying to like tag it, pull it in, reel it up. and then it comes out more and spits acid. I assume. I'm pretty sure the people that got hit with this stuff are dead, because either it was acid or it was just really sticky and it suffocated them. Either way, they're dead. It's like a green liquid. I assume it's acid. So they set off the explosive. This thing doesn't fucking die. Instead, just gets pissed, tunnels up into the mountain, and gets the high ground, wink wink, and is like spewing acid from the mountain. And they're like, fuck, how are we supposed to hit this thing? So Mando and the Marshal, they fly up on their jetpacks. They're shooting this thing, trying to draw it in the other direction. And he shoots it with the rocket, gets it to come toward him. Mando hits the jetpack of the Marshal, and it does exactly what happened to Boba Fett in Jedi, where he like shoots up in the air and he's like spinning around and shit out of control. He does that to get him out of the way. And there's a bantha with the rest of the explosives on it. And he takes that bantha and he gets the dragon to eat him and the bantha. And it goes under, and you're like, fuck, is he dead? And then you see like little lightning shocks, and he's shocking it in the mouth, flies out, sets off the explosive, boom! That, again, that Jaws moment where we blow the bitch up with explosives in the sand, the water, whatever. The shark, the graboid, explodes. It's dead. Everyone's happy. And the raiders and everyone, they're cutting up this thing, taking the meat. And I think one of them even finds like a pearl or an egg or something. So Mando just takes a little chunk, by a little, it's a big chunk, dragon meat. And Cobb, who we learned his name, he gives up the armor. The Marshal gives up the armor to Mando, and now he has Boba Fett's armor. And so he rides off, and then, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, we see a very scarred, older Boba Fett looking on in the distance, and you're like, oh, shit, motherfucking Boba Fett's in this bitch. And that brings us into episode 10, episode 2 of season 2, The Passenger. So as he's on his way back from this shit, bounty hunters attack him. They blow up his speeder bike. And they take the child by knife point after he fucks up the other two. So they want his jetpack. And he's like, fine, I'll trade you the jetpack for the kid. He gives him the jetpack, which is a terrible idea, because he then hits a button, shoots the motherfucker into the air, the guy falls to his death, and the jetpack then returns to the Mandalorian. Odds are, if people are wearing certain armor and have all these, high-tech shit, don't take that shit. This could happen. Terrible idea. So he goes back to Pelimoto, who is like gambling, and from the person she's gambling with, gets that there's a Mandalorian, in this Trask planet. But basically, there's a person that's willing to get him the information about the Mandalorians, this frog lady, but the only catch is he has to take her to that planet so that her husband can fertilize her eggs, or else, her bloodline will end. Like, you need to fertilize these eggs, or, like, we're done. And so he's kind of pissed about it, but Pelimoto's like, look, can you do this? And he's like, for you, fine, I'll do it. And basically, they're like, oh, by the way, you can't use your hyperdrive. And he's like, so I'm just supposed to fly normally with all the bounty hunters and shit out there. I'm supposed to, have this dangerous flight. They're like, yeah, if you jump to hyperspeed, the eggs will die. And he's like, motherfuck. So, some shit's going to go down. And also, Mando doesn't speak this frog language, so he has no real way of communicating, understanding what she's saying. I think she understands what he's saying, but he doesn't understand what she's saying. And not only that, but Baby Yoda eats the eggs. He thinks so he's eating a couple of eggs, and Mando's like, hey, stop fucking doing that. So he's all stressed out trying to keep Baby Yoda from making the species extinct. And I know a lot of people online were freaking the fuck out about this, saying like, oh, well, that's too dark for a kid's show. First of all, this show's a little dark. Have you seen all the people that get murdered in this? All right. Second of all, these eggs are not fertilized. You know, it's not like he's eating fetuses or actual babies. 3, it's frog people. It's not real people. It's a fictional frog species. So maybe people need to lighten up a little bit when it comes to this shit, first of all. Second of all, I like it. It's a little bit of a dark humor kind of moment. I enjoy it. And, you know, like this isn't aimed at children specifically. This is aimed at just Star Wars fans in general. It's always been a little morbid. You know, fucking Alderaan in the first movie gets blown up, a whole planet of people die like that. So, you know, fucking death is in Star Wars all the time. So, basically, on his drive, these Republic officers show up, and they're asking Mando a bunch of questions, like, why isn't your ship registered? And he's like, well, it's pre-Empire. It doesn't have to be registered. And like, well, rules are changed. You're going to have to register it. And he's like, well, the ping isn't working. And they're like, well, you'll have to pull over. And then he's like, fuck it. Like, clearly they're after me. So he takes off. They chase him to this ice planet called Maldo Crew. I'm very bad with names. But it's an ice-type planet. Mando crashes. He loses them, but he crashes in the ice. Ship's all fucked up. And not only that, but when he goes to the back, Baby Yoda's eating more eggs. And he's like, stop eating the fucking eggs. Like, this is, you know, you're messing this thing up. Stop it. Like, if you're hungry, we'll get you normal food. Stop eating eggs. So basically, he wants to wait until morning to leave, because at night, you don't know what the fuck's out there. You don't know what strange creatures are on this planet, especially by this ice thing in the middle of the night. Let's wait till daylight, and we'll go look around. And she hooks up, the frog lady hooks up to that the Zero bot that Mando killed, that Mando killed a while back, and is able to translate her frog lady talk to English, and basically is like, look, me and my husband have fought way too hard to just give up now. If these eggs are kept in the cold, they're going to die. And I thought you were a Mandalorian. Mandalorians aren't cowards. So what is this? I guess that's just a story. And that kind of hits him right in the fucking heart. You know, can't call anybody's home race a coward. So basically, he takes a little nap, and he wakes up, and she's gone. He has to go find her, and she's in like this little warm pool, trying to like warm up the eggs. And Baby Yoda's trying to eat the eggs, and he has to like fend off Baby Yoda and tell her like, look, we got to get back in the ship. So he's like trying to put the eggs back in the fucking thing and get her going. And Baby Yoda looks around, and there's these other like little eggs around the area. He's like, what's that? And he touches it, and it peels open like an alien, and then it even looks like a little fucking face hugger. And he eats it. And then all the other shit starts opening, and you're like, oh, fuck. And these combo of like a face hugger and spiders. Kind of looks like a face hugger, but like mobile. Hundreds of them, from little tiny ones to a fucking giant boulder-sized one, are now chasing after him. So it's a mad dash back to the ship. They're shooting all the fucking spiders, trying to not die. And they get in the ship, and they have to like seal off from the cockpit. So like Mando has to spray his fire and manages to keep enough out and kill the ones that made it in. And now they're kind of fucking screwed when the big ass spider comes up and starts fucking with the glass. But the Republic officers show back up, kill the big ass spider, tell Mando, look, you're wanted because of, when in the first season he let Coin out of jail. However, you tried to save an officer, that's on record, and you gave us those other 3 criminals. So we're going to let you go. He's like, so we're good? And they're like, just get your ship registered, and we better not fucking catch you again. So he's basically getting a little bit of a free ride, but like he's not in good standing with the New Republic. So he gets the ship mobile. It's not in good shape, and heads to take the lady back. And while they're taking off, Baby Yoda like sneaks another egg in his mouth. You're like, God damn it. Baby Yoda being adorable, trying to kill a species. And that brings us to episode 11, The Heiress. And it's also directed by Bryce Dallas Howard, another one for Mrs. Howard. Ms. Howard. I don't think she's actually married. So basically we start out, ship's coming in way too fucking hot to the Trask system or whatever. So he manages to get it to land, but then it just slides into the fucking water. So his ship's really fucked up. You know, it's spider damages, hull damages, you name it. This ship's in bad shape. Lucky that he was able to fly it at all. So he pays. They're on a planet. Admiral Akbar's species is here. I see a lot of them because they're by like the water. It's like a fishing town, you know. So there's a lot of aquatic type aliens here. They're the main ones. They have like they look like Cthulhu. They got the fucking tentacle mouths and shit. So they drop the ship off to get worked on, and they drop the frog lady off with her husband. So now she's able to get her eggs fertilized. And he takes Baby Yoda to get some food and also get information. And like there's a little scene where this little creature comes out of the soup and Baby Yoda's like fighting it a little bit, and he's like, "Stop playing with your food." And he wants info, and the tentacle mouth guy offers to take him to a Mandalorian, and instead, "Rototrop!" And he tosses Baby Yoda to this creature who swallows the container, and tosses Mando in the water and shuts a gate over it, trying to kill him. And it's like, oh shit. But then 3 Mandalorians show up. Bo-Katan, Koska, and Axe show up. And they fuck up tentacle mouth people. They kill the fuck out of them. And they blow up the ship. Boom, done. And they save Baby Yoda. But Mando's like, yeah, it's great, it's awesome. But they take off their helmets, and he's like, who the fuck are you guys? And they explain there are 2 kinds of Mandalorians. There's the Kreese, which are this Bo-Katan and her crew. They take their helmets off. They're not strict. You know, they're just fighters. Whereas Mando belongs to the Watch, which are, you know, they want to follow the old ways, the ancient methods. Never take off your helmet in front of a person. You know, this is the way. Follow the rules. Others aren't welcome. That business. And Bo-Katan is basically the Heiress of Mandalore that the Watch broke off from. So they already don't really trust each other because they're from 2 separate, you know, worlds. So basically, these other tentacle mouth people are like, you killed my brother, prepare to die, blah, blah. And as they go to attack Mando, Bo-Katan and her crew, like, I actually killed your brother. And then they fuck these people up and kill them. So it's like, I killed your brother, I kill you, and fuck you. Bo-Katan's a badass. And basically, they tell Mando, look, if you're trying to find where the child belongs, we'll take you to the only Jedi we know of. However, you need to help us out. Scratch our back, scratch your back. They want to invade an Imperial ship, one of the only ones left on this planet, and take the supplies, take the weapons to use against them. Ooh. So basically, he takes Baby Yoda to the frog people, like, will you watch him while I do this dangerous shit? I'm like, okay. And like, Baby Yoda sees that their frog baby hatch, and so he's like, oh my god, this is beautiful, and I don't eat them. Or maybe he is thinking, I still want to eat that. I don't know. So basically, they sneak in, and they murder the friggity fuck out of some stormtroopers. Particularly Bo-Katan is just messing up stormtroopers and guards. Blasters, 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 knives, the whole business. And then he learns that they want to take the ship. Like, they don't just want to take the supplies, they want to take the whole ship. And he's like, why didn't you tell me that? And they're like, look, you don't need to know everything. He's like, I'm really sketched out. But then they get ambushed by these stormtroopers. And it doesn't look like they're going to be able to prevail. Mando does some super heroic shit, runs out, throws explosives, fucks people up, clears the way. It's like, even though I don't necessarily trust you, I'm going to help you get through this shit. And then Gideon calls the general of this ship. He's like, look, what's going on? And they're like, we need reinforcements. They're like, are they almost to you? And he's like, yeah. He's like, that's too late. You know what to do. And I'm like, what? What do you do? And then he goes, yes, I know what to do. Shoots the fucking pilots. Shoots the two guys flying the plane. And just starts to kamikaze the bitch. Starts to take the bitch down. And I'm like, oh my God, this guy is dedicated to the Empire that doesn't even fucking exist anymore. That he's willing to kill himself. Not something you see a lot, you know? But they get to the bridge, they take the guy, they manage to get the ship back, and Bo-Katan's like, where's the Darksaber? And he's like, if you have to ask, you already know. And we're like, oh, we did see Gideon with the Darksaber, but what is the Darksaber? Like, you know, we still have some fucking questions. She knows about it, though. What do you want with the Darksaber? And the general's like, look, if you don't kill me, he will. And he takes like a Nylock pill, but it's like electric, and it fucking kills him with electricity. So this guy was really fucking dedicated to the Empire cause, an empire that no longer exists. So they take the ship, says his goodbyes, gets Baby Yoda. And as they're loading in the ship, this little fucking monster tries to attack Baby Yoda. Mando kills it real quick, not even looking back, and then Baby Yoda eats it. And then they fly off in search of Jedis. Great fucking episode there. And that takes us to the final episode we're going to talk about in this installation of the podcast. And that is episode 12, The Siege. So we start out, and there's a cute little Baby Yoda moment where Mando has Baby Yoda in this little pocket with these wires. And he's like, okay, take the red wire and put it where the blue wire was. And he's just holding both the wires. And he's like, don't let them touch. And he's like, okay. He's like, take the red wire and put it where the blue wire was. Like, there needs to be like a little like speak and spell thing that tells like, take the blue wire, put it where the red wire was. Like, it's just such an odd way to talk to a child. And he's like, no, don't put the blue wire back where it was. Take the red wire, put it where the blue, and then he goes to touch them together. He's like, no, they don't put them together. And Baby Yoda's just still looking and slowly like putting them together. Shocks the shit out of himself, and he's like, all right, you tried. It's adorable. And then we cut to some shady shit going down. These guys are like going to kill this ferret thing, and they're trading, I'm assuming, drugs and weapons. Like, it's some real action movie shit. And Cara Dune busts in, fucks all them up, saves the little ferret monster thing, and, you know, basically establishes herself as a badass again. And at that point, Mando arrives back on the planet, reunites with Karga and Dune, and Dune has basically become like the marshal of this town, of this planet. She is the law, whereas Karga has become the magistrate. And they agree to fix Mando's ship because, you know, he's done shit for them in the past as well. And basically they talk, Karga in particular, he's like, listen, the Empire, the Republic, whatever the fuck they want to do, we don't want to be a part of it. Like, we're on the Outer Rim, leave us alone, you know, we'll handle our own shit. They don't want to be involved in anybody, whether it's the Republic or the Empire. And they drop Baby Yoda off at a school, and Mando's like, why are we dropping the kid off? He's like, look, we're going to talk business. That kid doesn't need to be there. So they drop Baby Yoda off, and he sees this kid eating like these like blue cracker. It looks like candy. And Baby Yoda's like, holds out his hand like, can I have some? This kid's like, no. And then Baby Yoda holds out his hand, uses the Force, gets that fucking candy, eats it. Maybe if that kid fucking learned to share, Baby Yoda wouldn't take all of his shit, right? And Karga's assistant, we see, is the guy that the blue guy that Mando captured in the premiere episode of The Mandalorian. So, like, we get a call back, like, oh, that fucking guy you put in carbonite. He's like, yeah, ever since I got out of carbonite, I can't see out of my left eye. I don't want to be on the wrong side of the law again. Basically, what they want Mando to do is there's an Imperial base on this planet. It's the only one left. They want to blow it up so that there's no traces of the Empire left in their realm. And he's like, look, I don't really know if I want to, like, please. And he's like, fuck, fine. I like you guys. You helped me. I'll help you. So it's at a lava base. And basically the goal is to, kind of like with the Death Star kind of thing, blow up the reactor. So the blue guy hot wires in, while Mando just flies up to the top, and you see stormtroopers just falling to their deaths, like just dropping. And they get up there, and there's like bodies everywhere of stormtroopers. Like, I thought there was only a skeleton crew here. What the fuck are all these stormtroopers doing here? And things seem off already. Even Karga's like, look, I don't know what the fuck this is, man. And then, typical movie stuff, if you hint at something early on, it should show up in the final act of whether it's an episode or a movie. You hint at something early on, and then you use it later. Bad movies will just mention shit and not use it. But this is Star Wars. We know how to tell stories. So we mention the blue guy's like, hey, that's a Marauder. You know how much money we can get for that? They're like, leave it. And he's like, oh. Like, hey, remember that Marauder, right? Basically, they turn the camera like, hey, kids, look at that. We'll be back for that later. And then they swipe away, and we'll fucking follow these guys. And June fucking chokes a guard out, like the Imperial Guard, little hat. She fucking just wraps her arm and fucking chokes that bitch out. Like, it's brutal. It's like, boom, fucking choke you. And the blue guy goes to activate the reactor, and he's like the comic relief where he's like doesn't want to be there. He's like, hey, this thing doesn't have a guardrail. No, why do I have to be the one to go out here and do this? You know, he says stuff like that, you know, because he's not a fighter. He's just forced out there by Karga because he owes Karga so much money. So they come into a room where officers are trying to wipe data from a computer, and even as Mando and them go to shoot them, they're shooting the data, trying to kill it. So they get killed very quickly. And they find a message from Moff Gideon to these people that was from 3 days earlier. So they know Gideon is still alive because they thought he died when Mando shot down his TIE fighter. And basically his transmission says that they were using Baby Yoda's blood to try to inject it into other people and give them Force sensitivity. So essentially Gideon's trying to take high midichlorian counts, blood types, and infuse them into people to use the Force. So that's some sketchy shit going down, which is why he wanted the child so bad. So it becomes a big shootout amongst the stormtroopers. Mando flies off. He's like, I'll be back. I'm like, okay. And this is like the first time in a while we followed other people that aren't Mando for an extended period of time. Because he flies away, and hey kids, you remember that Marauder? We're getting in it now. So Dune, the blue guy, and Karga get in this Marauder. They're going away. Troopers get on the little speeder bikes like they did in Jedi, fucking chasing after them. Karga gets on the gun, boom, blows one bike up, good. Then they go around the side. Kara swings that bitch over, boom, blows that bitch up. Then one gets on top of it. He's like, haha, I'm on top. Karga whips that gun up, kills the shit out of that guy. Like, you know, sometimes you see a stormtrooper just fall, and you're like, maybe he's not dead. That motherfucker's dead. He took a cannon blast to the fucking face. He's dead. Very dead. So all the stormtroopers are fucked up. And they're like, oh man, we're out of the water now. Then all of a sudden, 3 TIE fighters come in. And they're like, shit, how do we fight TIE fighters from a land vehicle? But then, Mando arrives with the child in his ship. And is doing all sorts of spins, charging TIE fighters, blowing them out of the air, kills all the TIE fighters. Baby Yoda vomits from all the turning. But boom, the day is saved. And Mando gets his shit and takes off. And after he does, Republic officers show up. And they're asking questions. What happened to that Imperial base? Was there any weird shit going on before it blew up? What are you hiding from us? Why was the Razor Crest there? And like, the Razor Crest wasn't here. And they're like, well, we want to know what's going on because we're the new law. Karga gives them nothing. And then, this is a dick move. They know Cara Dune's past, that she was from Alderaan. And when Alderaan blew up, her entire family died. And they're like, wow, it's a shame what happened on Alderaan. If you were fighting with us, we want to fuck up the people who fucked up Alderaan. And it's like, don't use her dead family to try to get her to be on your side. Like, this is an interesting perspective because of all the Star Wars movies, they're like, Rebels are good, Empire bad. Or Rebels are good, New Order bad. But really what we see is there's people outside of the Jedi Sith debacle who are like, both sides fucking suck. The Empire are huge dicks, and the New Republic are dicks in a shady way, in a business way. There's always corruption. There's always chaos. Doesn't matter who's in office, right? So even though there's a New Republic, they're doing some shady shit too, and we don't know, we're going to find out later maybe what's going on with that. And with that, we find out Carl Weathers directed this episode. So he not only acted in this fucking episode, but he directed that bitch. And that is the end of this podcast. That was the first 4 episodes. Tune in next time when we talk about episodes 5 through 8. We wrap up season 2 of The Mandalorian. My thoughts so far, what a fucking ride, man. Great dragons, other Mandalorians, fucking Imperial bases, fucking generals, dark sabers, fucking, using midichlorian blood and shit, frog people, spiders. Man, there was all sorts of shit in these only 4 episodes. Cannot wait to do those other 4 episodes. Stay tuned next time. Again, guys, so many podcasts coming in 2021. As always, I'm your host, Mac Taylor. Stay safe, and most importantly, stay nerdy. Good night.